Was Gary Patterson only here to save Dave Aranda's job? This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel. I am your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. Thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day, as Baylor is still reacting to the fallout of Gary Patterson leaving the program. We're going to take a look at some of the quotes he had in his first and only interview after leaving the Bears and what that could mean, trying to find some answers in here, what he came here for, what might have driven him out, as well as during about the same time on Friday, Baylor football was making national headlines with some new apparel, with a new statement of intent that their coaches were wearing on the sidelines of practice pertaining to paying players. We're going to talk about why they did that and why that's a great thing for Baylor coming up on the show. Starting with Gary Patterson, kind of out of nowhere, leaves the Baylor football program on Friday, just as out of nowhere as it was 6 months ago when he joined the Baylor football program as a senior strategic consultant. Now, that title is important because I think a lot of us thought of him coming in as an analyst. I believe that was his title at Texas, and that's what a lot of these former coaches do, typically only a year or two. It's not these rarely last long. You usually, though, when you sign a guy in the offseason to it, they do the season, but we didn't quite get there with Gary. And I think that title is important. He mentioned this on the Matt Mosley show on ESPN Central Texas on Friday, that he said, I was a consultant. I came in to help a lot of the off-season stuff, recruiting, NIL, practices, that kind of infrastructural deal, rather than being an analyst who is going to be the coach's first call every Sunday morning after a game to break things down. He said, that's not necessarily what I was doing here. I was a consultant, and he consulted, and it's more of an off-season job. And it seemed like that's what it was. He also said he didn't want to be a bit of a distraction. And he also said something very interesting in there to me. We asked, hey, obviously this would have felt awkward being the best coach in TCU history, being an icon of that football program up north. That's an arch rival of Baylor's. Why come to Baylor? And it seemed like the administration asked him that question too. And Patterson's answer to me was the most intriguing of any of the answers in the interview. Here it is.
They asked me when I came down when I came down to interview, they said, well, why would you want to, guys got a chance to, in the College Hall of Fame, doing all, why do this? And I told them, I said, because I liked your head coach. Same reason I went to Texas. They were in jam. I knew the defensive staff. I wanted to help them keep their job. And I did that. They got a 2-year extension, and they got to play, whatever role mine was at Texas. And the same thing at Baylor. Hopefully, whatever I helped them with, hopefully it gets them over the hump, gets them back doing what they need to do. And I felt at Texas, I felt like I needed to get out of their way, just like I said earlier. And now I feel like I did my job, what they brought me down to do.
Because I like your head coach. That answer stopped me in my tracks. Obviously, I don't think that Gary Patterson didn't like Dave Aranda, but that's a very intriguing way to answer it, right? Like, obviously, Gary wants to coach some more. I would imagine he'd have more options that wasn't Baylor, but, living in Fort Worth, this is a fairly easy option for him to just drive down to Waco when he needs to and doesn't have to, move out of state or anything like that. And he said, because I like your head coach, which is something that a lot of the fan base can't even agree on, let alone rival coaches. And then goes on to say, which is even more fascinating to me. I'm just trying to think of other synonyms of interesting here. He says it was basically the same thing at Texas. I really liked those coaches on the defensive staff. I wanted to help them keep their jobs. it's no secret that Dave Aranda was and is on the hot seat at the head coach at Baylor. And I think a lot of fans and certainly a lot of coaches as well were surprised. While if it's pleasantly surprised or like, what the heck are they doing surprised, they were surprised that Dave Aranda kept his job after a 3-9 season last year. And Gary Patterson saw this as a way to help. I'm a Hall of Fame coach. I'm not doing anything right now. I just left UT. I got time on my hands. Why don't I help this guy keep his job? That's fascinating to me. That is going on out here. And who better? I mean, to be honest, we're talking about a Hall of Fame coach here to say, I can help you out. I can do this for you. I can help you keep your job and your nice house and your family's cushy living situation here in Waco. Maybe possibly at the detriment to the school that I helped so much for 25 years almost. That is interesting. Was Gary Patterson just here to save Dave Aranda's job? I think he might have said as much right there. Because again, I know we overplay rivalries as fan bases, but for a TCU legend to come in and help Baylor is a wild storyline. Especially to say, yeah, I like your coach that much. Wow. Okay. So maybe Gary has done what he needed to do. I came in, I put the infrastructures in place. If this guy can't handle it, that's on him. But I have given the tools that led me to be a very successful coach and has helped other successful coaches that I've surely worked with in the last few years after the TCU job. And now I wiped my hands of it. I've done what I need to do. He's got the tools ahead of him now. If he can't do it, so help him. But wow, to say, yeah, I wanted to help your coach. That's interesting to me, because I think there's part of this that Gary would have hated the pictures that we so yearn for on the Baylor sideline, wearing a Baylor visor, Baylor polo. He was out there on the field in spring practices wearing a lot of just Nike like jacket, Nike hat, not a lot of Baylor logos on there. There is a side of this that he just wanted to help Dave Aranda, kind of like what he just said, right? Like that's what he did it for. That he was like, man, I feel like this is a next step for me in my coaching journey, that I go and help someone else. Maybe it's the biggest rival of the place I made my legacy. Maybe it's the biggest rival of the place where my statue is. But I'm going to help this guy. A lot of people made some memes. I'll leave the segment with this. There were a lot of memes over the summer of Bill Belichick and Nick Saban now being free agents, not having coaching jobs, and whether they should just go into programs as a reality TV series and do like a John Taff or Bar Rescue and turn the place around. I think Gary Patterson might have just done that at Baylor. We won't know the effects of Gary Patterson's short stint here with the Bears. We really will never know. But that might just have been what he was going for there, which is really funny to me, to be totally honest, in a great, great way. Passion, drive, patience, the things that bring home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is the place to go for that. It's got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up, okay? Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights. I actually just bought a little door jamb thing, the sensor. I had to replace it again. The sensor to make sure your door shut, did it on eBay Motors. It was perfect. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber. You're not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home those huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions to apply. That eBay guaranteed fit only available to our U.S. customers. And once again, that is ebaymotors.com. And there are several ways to look at this Gary Patterson exit from Baylor. And no doubt this is a talking point for college football fans all over the country. So thank you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every day. But, Locked On College Football, make that your second. Locked On Big 12, make it your third. All in the medal stand. These are going to give you all the around-the-clock coverage that you're looking for every day about stories like this and the greater world of college football. And again, I think there are a lot of ways to look at this, and no shortage of theories out there on social media, in the comment sections, and things like that. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if this is Gary Patterson saying, I just need to get out of the way, which is what he told us on the Mosley show. Because, and I say that because, it seems idyllic, but he also made a big stink about that at Texas. Of, not even parking in the coach's parking spots. Like he just wanted to be way out of the way. But I think there is a legitimate theory to what this Dave Aranda, Gary Patterson relationship was like. I don't think they hate each other. Don't get me wrong. And Gary Patterson said he wanted to help. But I just wonder when it becomes a professional relationship in terms of I'm the head coach, you're a consultant, what that looks like. Because any head coach or anybody who's been a head coach ever at this level has an ego. Everyone, the nicest people in the world, some of them, they've got an ego. They have to. Or else they can't do a job as demanding as this. Whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. They have to have an ego. And when you bring in a former head coach, especially one as successful as Gary Patterson, there's bound to be egos flying around the room. And Gary hinted at that a little bit in another one of his answers when talking about his time at Texas. And this is one that just sprung a whole nother theory for me. And this is it.
And you got to remember now, like Sark was on the opposite side. It's a little bit different dynamic having the head coach as the defensive coordinator and sitting in the room. And so, he's back to prove that he can play really good defense. And so he doesn't, I answered all the questions. We, changed what we needed to change. Gave him suggestions. There'll be some stuff they'll run that I suggested. But I think, as a general rule, that you got a lot of good coaches sitting in the room. And so, I hope them and the kids both, they do well.
You're right, Gary. It is different. At Texas, here was a coach in Steve Sarkisian who was trying to be a head coach again, right? He had gone through the coach's rehab, which I don't mean for that to be a sick joke, at Alabama, and got a head coaching job at Texas. And that was his second year, I believe, when Gary came on. And it was almost as if Gary came in and was like the defensive head coach, right? He kind of oversaw the defensive side, and he actually did. He was an analyst there. He did help out with game plans and coaching decisions and things like that, and was on the sideline and was wearing, this was a little bit more legit than the job description he had at Baylor. And he talks about it in there, when the head coach is on the offensive side, it allows for a little bit more freedom for an analyst on the defensive side, right? To kind of go and figure that out. Dave Aranda, on the other hand, is a defensive-minded head coach who has just named himself the defensive play caller and is trying to be more hands-on on the defensive side, is trying to, get into more of a rhythm with his players on the defensive side, trying to work out what these duties are on the defensive side for someone like Matt Powledge or some of the new coaches they brought in. when you've got a head coach who's now trying to be more hands-on on the side of the ball that you are the expert on, in the case of Gary Patterson, that can get pretty crowded. I think back to the famous Princess Di quote of, 3 in a marriage is quite crowded. And I think there might have been some of that from both sides in Gary Patterson and Dave Aranda. And I don't think necessarily like very bad on either side, right? Gary comes in as a defensive guy. He's trying to help out what you hired him for. Dave Aranda also is staking his job. One of the things on becoming the defensive and out there on the field with his team. And when you have another Hall of Famer or a Hall of Famer on the defensive side, it might be tough in terms of who the players are going to listen to. Because damn right, they're going to listen to Gary Patterson as well. I'm not saying they're not listening to Dave Aranda, but heck yeah, they're going to listen to Gary Patterson. They've seen this guy do it before. And so I think there might have just been a bit too much ego in that defensive room. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. Again, this is natural. This is any head coach. And I think to Gary's point, he kind of stepped out of the way for that. The whole time he was saying, sometimes it's just time to step out of the way. Let these guys do what they do. So, yeah, there might have been some clashing, but this was not going to be a marriage that was going to last forever. You thought it was going to last longer than it did, get into a game of the season that he was hired for. But I just think my theory is I think it got a little crowded there. I really do. Again, not even a bad thing. I just think that's a lot of defensive genius in the same room. And it doesn't always work. And who knows, Gary's old school. TCU might be finding that out with all the head coaches they've hired onto the staff this year, looking over people's shoulders. We haven't seen a model like that in college football that works, that you have a ton of head coaches there. So yeah, I think both things are true. He stepped out of the way because he felt he needed to, but I think he felt he needed to because there was just a little too much defensive brains in that room and a little bit too much instruction maybe. And it was time to see something else, to hear a singular voice and a singular mindset, at least from a player standpoint. Baylor also needed to make another huge change going into this football season, and boy golly, are they embracing it, and are we as fans happy to see it. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We are so close, people. We are so close to getting all our beloved sports back. But right now, we're still in the summer. You know me, I live and die with this stuff, and it's been boring. The sports are not sportsing the way they're supposed to do. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going all the time whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app, dream up any bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official, there we go, sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. FanDuel.com. The Gary Patterson news was not the only big news out of Baylor football on Friday, because it felt like, minutes afterwards, they went out to the practice field, beginning of fall camp, and a couple of the Baylor coaches, including defensive coordinator Matt Powledge and recruiting icon Keenan Hall, walked out there with these green dry fit shirts with the Baylor logo on it that said, "We pay players." We pay players. Say it again one more time for the folks in the back. We pay players. They are leaning into this thing. And personally, I love it. And for those of you college football purists who don't think we should be paying players, but you're a Baylor fan, you should also love it. Okay? Because first off, we are getting to the point, I guess we haven't officially got there yet, where that is true. We can pay players. And even through NIL collectives. NIL collectives are brought together by the university. Okay? So ever since NIL, schools have been legally paying players. If we're getting down to brass tacks here. Okay? It's through the involvement of other businesses and communities and things like that. But it's organized by the school, by the program. And programs, the last 2-3 years, have been able to offer guarantees to these players. Quinn Ewers did not start at Texas. He started at Ohio State out of South Lake Carroll in Texas because he had a guarantee he was going to make over $1 million in NIL money. How can the school guarantee that if they don't have a part to play in it? How can a school tell you how much money you're going to make in NIL if they have no say in it whatsoever? They can't. And still these promises are made. From day one of NIL, these promises were made. Oh, you come to Texas Tech, here's how much you're going to make. Oh, you come to UT, which Lamborghini do you want? That's because it's organized by the school. And the way NIL is written, I find no problem with that. That's what you've opened yourself up to. But now this House versus NCAA, and the agreement between the NCAA and the Power Five is you can just start paying them. Raise tuition if you want. Start paying your players. They're employees. That's what it is. And so I find it pretty funny, some of the outrage from some Baylor fans, but a lot of other college fans, that Baylor's leaning into this. Because in reality, every program should be leaning into this. And I've been saying this. Everyone else surrounded with Baylor has been saying this for years. The knock on Baylor is that they're behind in NIL. Adapt or die. And now that they're out there saying it, it's all these other college fan bases and a few other older fans in our fan base saying, this is cheating. How can you just say that? Report them. This is cheating. Miss me with it, man. Miss me. I saw Tech fans in the comments because we've taken some of their recruits lately. And the ones who aren't saying, oh, we didn't want that guy anyway, are saying this is cheating. Because I certainly remember a couple of years ago, Tech basically guaranteeing salaries to players that were coming to play. And that was fine. I think the ones with the hair across their bottoms are really SMU because they should have been printing those T-shirts 40 years ago. And now you're actually allowed to do it, SMU. This could really be you on the comeback because you are allowed to pay players now. You don't have to have a huge conspiracy with the governor of Texas involved. You can actually pay them. And I love that Baylor is leaning into this. And it's not even really from the standpoint of I just like that players are getting played. Because I really don't care as a fan. And most of us don't care. I think it was criminal the way it was before that players couldn't get anything, that they were, forced to live between their schedule and the NCAA rules, like forced to live in poverty, if we're being totally honest. And so I'm glad that they're getting paid. I don't lose sleep one way or the other because I'm not a player or I'm not a coach. But what I love about this is Baylor's exuberance about paying players in a weird way has nothing to do with paying players. For us as fans, what is so great about it is they are leaning into the adapting world of college football. That T-shirt that says we pay players is more about Baylor fans stick with us because we've got our heads screwed on straight now, more so than it is dishing out some cash to players. That T-shirt is saying, we know the new college football, and we're here to play it. We might be a few years late, but we are here to play this new college football. And we're not going to hide behind the smoke screen that, oh, little old Baylor, we're too poor. We're not doing that anymore. We've even got Dave Aranda on board. He's the one who said the quote. We've got the Berenstein Bears guy saying, yeah, we'll pay players. We're going to do it. That's how we're going to win. Because that's how every college team is going to win. It might outwin them the Big 12 this year. Almost certainly won't, right? But it is a signal of intent from this program and this university that we are going to compete in this landscape. We did it 10 years ago in a different, not paying players, but we competed in an ever-changing college football, and we didn't necessarily do it the right way. Right? That goes without question. But now they are going to say, we are going to be within the rules, and we are going to make this a football school again, because there's no reason we can't be. We've seen spurts of success since Art Briles left, and it looked like we were going down the wrong tube because we weren't embracing this. Now we are. Buy the t-shirt. So I'm here for it. Bring on some more. If they had these shirts available in dry fit, I would have already bought one, but it looks like they're all cotton on the website. But this is a way for Baylor to finally make a statement and not be, for lack of a better term, so darn conservative. To actually say we are leaning into this, come what may with the memes. Because, look, if Baylor goes 4-8 this year, the memes will be aplenty. And they are right now. But just wait. Because we've got our heads screwed on straight now. And we're finally now playing the same game that you guys have been playing for 2-3 years. So watch out. Here comes Baylor. Either tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. Baylor's coming. You've seen it in the transfer portal. You've seen it on the recruiting trail. And now you are seeing it with us leaning into this new college football. The wins will be coming. Hopefully some this year, but definitely down the line. Because Baylor is finally putting itself at the adults table of college football again. And this t-shirt proves that. Let me know what you think about Baylor paying players and leaning into it. Drop that down in the comment section below. And what you think of this whole Gary Patterson leaving. I don't think it's going to derail the program or anything. I mean, it's not on a good rail right now. But let me know what you think. Is there any theory that hasn't been thrown out there yet that you think has some legs? Drop that down in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe, ring that notification bell, because we'll drop videos here on YouTube every day and wherever you get your podcast completely for free. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We really appreciate that. And we will see you tomorrow on your favorite program, Locked On Baylor.